Kia ora koutou, everybody. My name's Jenna Ash. I want to personally welcome you to our webinar today, Thriving in Your First Legal Role. This is one of a series of webinars that we are running, the third in our series. We asked a lot of prof students earlier in the year what kinds of topics they wanted to hear about from us. And as they were transitioning into legal practice and building the beginnings of their legal careers, and we had a list of topics that came back of things you wanted to hear about, and we're absolutely delighted to be able to partner with Tyler Wren to deliver some of those. So we've already run sessions on interviewing techniques, and also where to look for legal roles, and those are available on our website. We'll share the link afterwards. This is our third in that series, so thriving in that first year of your first legal role. Tyler Wren they are a recruitment organization, and they have a team, two of whom are here with us today, that specialize in legal recruitment across New Zealand, also in Australia and the UK. They absolutely know their stuff. And on top of that, they're fabulous people to be working alongside. So I'm absolutely delighted to have them here with us on the webinar, and I will hand over to them now. Actually, before I do, just one small point of administration. If you do have questions as we go through today, please can you capture them in the Q&A section down the bottom of the screen? So not in the chat, but there's another Q&A function. Then we can handle those questions as they come through. Some of them we might provide written answers, and some of them we will save up for the end and do a big Q&A section at the end. So over to you, Ben and Lisa.
Thanks so much, Jenna. Ben and I have been really enjoying working with the College of Law on this little trilogy. Just on that note, if any of you guys have got any ideas for webinars that you might be interested in, please feel free to reach out to Jenna or myself. I'm Lisa with regards to that. That would be awesome. So as mentioned, Ben and I work for Tyler Wren. We're both legal recruiters. We've been in the industry for over 15 years. We love engaging with lawyers and legal support staff at the start of their careers to really help them navigate through what that might look like. And we're talking to the same people after many, many years in the profession. It's great to see you guys kind of grow and develop. So today, I'm just going to touch on the agenda. This is, I guess, a bit of a 12-month roadmap for your first year in your job. We've broken it down into the quarters, and we just feel that that would make it really measurable, really kind of tangible for you guys. So Ben is going to talk us through phase one, which is more towards systems and team integration. The second phase, which is kind of months 4 to 6, core foundations and networking. Then phase three, workflow management. And then phase four, really finding your voice. And hopefully by that point, you've found your feet. So Ben, can I hand over to you?
Yep, absolutely. So at this point, you've secured your job and you're starting. So the first 3 months are obviously, I don't think I have to emphasize it enough. It's very important. It's first impressions in the workplace. So the first things that we want to be focusing on is, well, we've called it learning the machine in your colleagues. So learning the practice management system that your firm uses and getting used to tracking every single thing that you do sort of every 6 minutes. So if you're in an in-house role, then your job is to learn the business. So talk to procurement, grab a coffee with HR, figure out what the company is actually sells or what they do. That would be sort of the first step there. This is a perfect time to quietly work out how your colleagues tick, how they work. So watch the office dynamics. Does your boss prefer a quick desk chat, or does he prefer a formal email? So figuring out those things and figure it out early, as you sort of want to, I guess, stick to that path going forward. Use casual spaces like the kitchen, office coffee runs to build organic rapport with people around you. Don't force weird, I guess, intense formal meetings. Keep it all quite casual and natural in the first instance. Be normal, be helpful, and don't try to hide your confusion to look smart. Ask lots of questions. It's fairly normal to be doing that within the first 3 months. There's a bit of a Q1 checklist to tick off. So nail the tech. So get confident navigating platforms like ActionStep, iManage, so you aren't losing documents. Account for your day. So get into the habit of logging your time and your project pipelines daily. Don't wait till the end of the week and then try and figure out what you've been doing on the Friday. Do it day to day and stay on top of that. Map the wider team, so figure out who is who, what their working styles are of, well, specifically the direct supervisors and support staff. So just try and figure out that wider team, and then make sure that you're writing killer file notes. So make sure that your meeting minutes and file notes are clear, that anybody can pick them up and know exactly what's going on at any given point. So that's really month 1 to 3. It's just settling in and getting to know the people and the way that they work around you.
Great.
Over to
So
you,
I'll
Lisa.
carry on with phase 2. So look, I think thinking back to when I kind of first had my first job, I think my first 2 weeks felt like more than my first quarter. And I think that it's about taking some deep breaths and really getting into something that is just totally unusual to what you've been doing since your degree in school. So, that first quarter is going to feel, that first month is going to feel really quite long. And you're going to be really aware of the stuff that you don't know. So I think the first few days, everyone feels super positive because it's exciting and you've got a desk and, you've got a boss, a laptop and, mobile and all that kind of stuff. And then I think what starts sinking in is the overwhelming comprehension that you just don't know. You know then what you don't know. And you've got your colleagues running around you, adding lots of value, whether you're in a private practice or whether you're in-house. And I think just coping with those nerves and sitting back and listening and trying to start learning from your peers around you without that feeling overwhelming is just great. And it's really natural to feel like that. So, I'm aware that individuals who have got 5 years PQE, they start their new job and they feel the same. We're all kind of human at the end of the day. We've all got emotions. We all want to impress. We want to do well. We want to kind of live up to the expectations that we've set for ourselves. So all of that stuff is really natural. So I guess I just wanted to add a little bit more onto that side. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me going into that. So our second section, once that first horrible quarter has finished, you should start feeling like you're in a little bit more of a routine. This second area, phase 2, is shifting style and connecting outwards. So rather than feeling that kind of overwhelmed, and hopefully you're getting into a bit of a more of a routine, you've got your own mug in the kitchen, and you're starting to kind of just build up a little bit of I guess, rapport with your colleagues there. It's now time to really, I guess, put into action what you have spent your time learning, but in a really practical way. So, yes, there are some law firms that require very sterile, very kind of to the book letter law, but in-house and in many, many, many other settings, it's about what are those practical solutions. So your colleagues around you will want to start seeing more shorter, more kind of precise responses from you. And I guess using the word no in a technical legal setting isn't helpful. So creating solutions or starting to create solutions, and also giving reasons as to why something might not quite be as achievable or a different way to do something, adding a bit of creativity there might be really useful. The other key thing here is, if you feel like you're flying, there's likely to be something that's not quite right. You want to make sure that accuracy is, and you being thorough and precise, overtakes speed. Your manager, your supervisor, your peers would much prefer to see a piece of work done really, really well and maybe taking a little bit more time rather than something that you've rushed just to kind of get it out the door. Pay that attention to the detail. Um, your supervisor doesn't want to have to spend lots and lots of time correcting stuff, which at this point you should know. Bearing in mind you've just started, so there will be a lot of correction, but just think about having that accuracy in the back of your mind is really, really important. The other key thing this kind of quarter you might want to start doing is thinking about your peer network. It's a massive long-term asset. And I'm not talking about clients, I'm talking about stakeholders, I'm talking about supervisors and also other individuals at your level, or maybe those are tiny bit more senior. Also, not just internally in your current team, but also a bit wider across a business, especially if you're in-house, if there's any social clubs as an example for you to join. But then outside of that, thinking about peer groups that might be of interest to you. For instance, the Young Lawyers Association, Women in Law, specialist legal groups, so the Family Lawyers Association, AMINs, those kind of groups. Even if you've got, specialist interest, if you're an employment lawyer, there are those specialist groups. And you might want to look at your social subgroups as well in terms of who is practicing law. These are great for you to bounce ideas off. Obviously, we don't want to break any confidentialities in terms of the type of work that you're doing, but you can talk to your peers about how you've handled something in particular, obviously without releasing any personal information, and just bouncing those ideas can be pretty useful. Key things to think about for your Q2 goals. So try to get away from legal spiel. Try to write emails, especially if you're in an in-house role, to non-legal people that they will understand and that it's not super formal talk. Do the hard work first. Your boss would prefer a much quicker tidy up rather than having to totally restructure and rewrite stuff. Put yourself out there. So as we talked about the Young Lawyers Associations, ILANS forums, look at your local corporate networking teams. Just go and socialize with them. You don't have to be the life and soul, but they'll all be feeling the same, especially if they're at the same level of PQE as you. And if they're very much starting in their careers, but also meeting potential future mentors at these events can be really handy. I'm often talking to lawyers who have kept those mentors throughout their careers. They've recommended them to other individuals, and lo and behold, you're next in they end up being your future employer because of those networks and those teams that you build. Other key thing to do, try to get your research down packed. So make sure that you can track down judgments, make sure that you can use the AI, make sure that you can, navigate LexisNexis without needing someone to be over your shoulder all the time. So that takes you through your Q2.
Good stuff. So once we've done that, we're entering into month 7, so the third quarter, and we've named this Managing Your Stakeholders and Your Managers. So the reality is at this point, it starts to become more of the reality of a 9 to 5. You start to get busy. The work is starting to pile up. In a firm, you will have different partners who are now starting to provide you work. All likelihood is that you'll have different partners providing you work. And each partner will classify their work as urgent, and they'll be just as important as the other partners. So part of this period is managing how to deal with that pressure. If you're in an in-house role, you'll have different departments asking for different things. You might have the sales team asking for a contract review. You may have HR asking for something about an employment clause, and marketing wanting something else. So again, lots of different work coming to you from different locations, all coming in as important as each other. So a secret weapon to surviving this, and it's not, to be fair, not just within law roles, this is just in life in general, is managing up. By that, it's how we interact with the people we report to. So it's 100% your responsibility to manage your capacity and communicate deadlines transparently. So yeah, in other words, don't sit there quietly drowning until you miss a deadline. That would be far worse than communicating that you're under the pump and have too much work that you can't get to these deadlines that they're trying to set. So talk to your stakeholders, say something like, I can absolutely look at this vendor agreement for you, but I've got a hard deadline for the CFO. Can I get this back to you by Thursday? Or is there a general commercial emergency? So learn how to, I guess, line up the work based on that importance. So learn to triage, I guess, is how you describe that. In terms of how that can look, own your to-do list. So use Outlook tasks, Trello or physical diary, or just find some system that you can use to understand what work you've got when the deadlines are. I'm actually really bad for that, as Lisa will tell you. But so I'm preaching. But yeah, just use something to prioritize and write down your tasks. Get the commercial context. So don't look at a legal problem in a vacuum. Think about what the company or the client is actually trying to achieve strategically. Understand why it's important and what they're trying to achieve. Think ahead. So when you're handed a task, don't just agree to it blindly. Actually think about the work that you've already got on and suggest the next two logical steps to move forward. And I guess the last thing is make sure you're regularly tracking your billable targets and make sure that you're meeting those internal deadlines or team turnaround time. So make sure that you're not the one letting the wider team down. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers things off. But in that period, things will start to get busy. You're now onboarded, and the work will start to be delegated from many different locations.
Cool. So let's head to phase 4. I think the other key thing to say about this point is you should start formulating an idea as to whether you actually like this or not. Most of the individuals that we talk to commence work within an area of law, whether that's in-house or corporate or employment or family or whatever. And I'd say 85% of them hit the nail on the head straight away, and it's everything that they want to do, and they want to continue with that career path for the medium term or until they've made some further decisions a bit further down the line. But at the same time, there are individuals that don't find that it's what they expected, and that's okay. So by this point, this should really give you a sense check as to whether it's the right area or not. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not easy to change paths, but it's not impossible. I think at the same time, the worst thing that you could do at this point is to not continue with the kind of basic work principles that would stand you in good stead in terms of a reference. So, keep turning up, keep learning the technical aspects of the role, keep utilizing the development of drafting, keep building relationships with your colleagues and peers. But if you don't feel the core of the role is for you, that's okay. But also don't kind of let it blow up. Think strategically about how you are potentially going to move roles and what that might look like, and talk to mentors, talk to your peers, and obviously talk to Tyler Wren about how we can navigate that. Just this week, I'm talking to someone who has decided to move out of more of a corporate advisory role into litigation. So we are working through how that's going to look. As I've said, it's not easy, but it makes it easier because this individual has carried themselves brilliantly with their current law firm, with their bosses, and everyone is managing this in really good grace. But if anybody wants a further chat about that, feel free. So if you're happy, we want to move into that last phase, which is then adding value and taking responsibility. And I think your first 9 months are more, it can be a bit more one-way traffic. So, you're learning, you're developing absolutely everything and anything. And by this kind of last quarter, what your supervisors and what your managers will want to see is more of an add value on this. So this is where you need to be aware of where you can add value, where you can trust your professional judgment. Also, there are lines in terms of that level of responsibility, but it shouldn't be all spoon feeding now. You should be creating solutions. So in terms of what that might look like is if you're walking into your boss's office with, there's a bad clause on here, this is wrong, as opposed to, okay, there's a bad clause on this contract. We could potentially think about this way, or we could potentially think about it this way. Or even if your solution isn't quite right, it shows that you're thinking and that you're starting to act as a strategist and not just an assistant. And then again, it's that continuation of networking and making sure that you are still building out your all of those people that are kind of within your, as I've said before, your peer group, within your business, if you're in-house, within your team, but also kind of externally to that as well. You might also find that you are starting to attend networking events on behalf of your law firm, or association events if you are affiliated with anybody, or indeed kind of commercial industry events if you're in-house. And it's really important that you are behaving appropriately, you're presenting yourself well, that you are representing your firm. So look, although it's a fantastic opportunity to get involved and meet lots of people, you must make sure that you're taking the tone of voice of your employer to those meetings. The final thing that you want to be doing during this phase is starting to reflect, starting to plan, and also building up to your annual review. So most employers hold an annual review, and that gives you an opportunity to take a step back with your boss and think about what you've learned for the year, figuring out where you might need to make improvements, and also mapping out your clear goals for year 2. The other key thing that I'd say about that is your annual review should also be a two-way process. It should be your boss, your stakeholders giving constructive feedback about where you're at, but also you should be bringing something to the party too. And also, especially if you want to develop and grow, really working out how you can put that into, I guess, measurements to make that happen. So look, first year in, it's certainly not about being perfect. It's about building a really good foundation, a really good platform to work on. If you make no mistakes, and I'm not sure what you've been doing, everybody makes mistakes in their first year. It's more so how you handle them and how you kind of grow from them than actually making them. Also, it's a stressful time. It's a total change around. So just be really aware of where your head's at. Are you enjoying the job? Are you being pulled in lots of directions? Just making sure from a personal point of view, things aren't feeling too overwhelming, and just making sure that you feel really fresh and really good to continue working for your employer and adding value there. I think we're on to questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa and Ben. There was some absolute gold in there. Really good advice. We have had no questions come in live, so I'll leave that open for anyone to type in any questions that they have. But we have got some questions that were pre-submitted, so I will go ahead and ask those while we wait for some live questions to come in. So, the question that came in, apologies, I'm going to have to make my screen slightly bigger to be able to see it. Obviously, we're in a phase where AI is changing rapidly, expanding significantly. What are the advantages and disadvantages of incorporating these technologies into the legal profession, and how might this affect the next generation of young lawyers?
I'll take that one if that's all right, Jenna. Well, first of all, pass me my crystal ball. And then the crystal ball will change from what it says next week to what's happening next year to the next 3 or 4 years. I really wish, I mean, it's going to be a really exciting time. That's one thing that I'd say. But I guess the key changes that we're seeing right now on the 6th of July is a lot of conveyancing style work, a lot of process style work. There's some fantastic AI systems being created around that piece. We're seeing obviously a lot of contract review being able to be pushed through AI. And I guess it's more that kind of process driven piece. We have also seen there where it has fell down. So I don't think lawyers are going to be wiped out overnight. I think that would be ridiculous. But I think anything that can be created into a process is likely to be affected by that. Where the voices that we're hearing from the legal industry is we need individuals who can build strategic thinking and who can build great relationships and who can make good decisions, which sounds really basic, but it is more that, I hate to say it, but more of that kind of human decision-making process that our clients are very much looking for at the moment. And I think lawyers will need to, whether they're in-house government or if they are working for a private firm, those communication skills and those ability to build relationships, business develop, network are going to be really key. So for those of you who might are aware or can identify that that's not maybe a key skill or experience level, that's where going to those association meetings, just putting yourself out there a little bit, building up those friendship groups, for want of a better phrase, or peer groups, and just going through the motions of cold talking to someone will come in really, really useful down the line. So that's about as much as I can give on that one.
I would just add to that as well. It's a similar situation for most industries. We have the same situation in recruitment, but what it always boils down to is who can have a conversation with somebody and engage with somebody effectively. And whilst the knowledge may be able to go online or go into an AI system, humans still like to talk to humans and they still like to engage with humans. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon in our industry or in the legal industry. So it really, I think what Lisa just said at the end there is probably the most important thing, is doing things that are a little bit out of your comfort and making sure that you can communicate effectively with people.
Absolutely. I would agree with everything you said. And I know this isn't my webinar, but I'll just jump in on that from the perspective of legal education and the skills that we are training junior lawyers for. Is what we're hearing is the ability to work with AI is going to be critical, but what the skill is being able to supervise AI, to actually take an output and, to Ben's point, critically analyze it. And apply that lens on top of why is this, what is this not got in it, or what does this need, how does this need to change based on my interactions as a human with the client, with the context and knowledge of the law. So that's what we focus on in profs, is really about supervising the outputs and your ability to articulate why you've made changes to what has been populated by AI.
I think just to add to that as well, because we do use it in our industry and we use it in all industries now. It's definitely not quite there yet either. In my world, mistakes are common, hallucinations they call them, and in your world, which is the legal world, a mistake or an hallucination is actually obviously a lot more damaging than potentially in our world. So, whilst it's absolutely going to play a part, and it's absolutely something that people are going to, when they're hiring, want you to be comfortable using, yeah, it's certainly not replacing anytime soon, in my opinion. You can hold me to that in 2 years.
We'll repeat this webinar in 2 years and see what the answer is then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go to some of the live questions that have come in. So was it Lisa, you were talking about have you figured out after 9 months that you're not actually enjoying the area of law that you've gone into? What would you say is the best way to transition into a new area of law?
I think you need to try to choose something where you can transfer the core skills that you've gained so far into that new area of law. So I think you need to take a step back and analyze the type of matters or the type of work that you've been doing, and how that might apply. So as an example, the individual I was talking about earlier, they want to do litigation, but rather than go into crim or go into civil, they've decided that they want to go into corporate commercial litigation because the contractual experience they've built up so far, they can then carry that technical expertise across, so it doesn't feel like a bit of a different bucket. I think as I said, moving from something like family law into construction law is a push, unless you are prepared to very much start from day one. So maybe be aware in terms of what that might mean from a salary perspective and you restarting the career. So being realistic on that side. And I think talk to us. If you've gained a bit of legal experience, if you're coming to that kind of 9-12 month point, we are likely to be able to offer you some really good advice on that side. I guess the final piece that I would say is law firms and employers love tenure. So even if you're not quite loving where you are, but you've given it a really good crack for, say, 12 months or 18 months, I would probably stick to that and get that good tenure, demonstrating commitment, that loyalty, that you've stuck somewhere for a period, and then look for something after that point. You'll have also been through learning curves, developing core legal skills, which you should be able to take into other areas of law at that point. At the same time, if you absolutely hate it, and it's just, you're really struggling, then talk to your mentors, talk to your peers, talk to us, and we can see if we can do anything.
I think I would add to that. The only other thing is probably not to leave it till year 4 to make that decision.
No.
Because your salary's been bumped up. You're so far into obviously your career in one space that changing is going to hurt financially. It's going to be a huge step back. So if you're making that decision, I think, like Lisa said, probably that 12 to 18 months is probably the right period to make that call. Don't leave it too long.
Okay, thank you both. This is another live question that's come in, and it is very relevant to one particular individual. Sometimes it's harder for us to answer these questions when it's person specific, but I will ask it because there might be other people for whom this is also relevant. This person's been working at a law firm for 4 years in an admin role. They have been told there's no room in the legal team for them this year, till at least next year, if at all. They are being admitted at the end of this year, and they want to know, should they stay at the firm they're familiar with, I guess with anticipation or hope that something comes up, or should they start applying elsewhere, or should they apply elsewhere?
Yeah, I think the thing, and this is a really interesting one, this individual is considering this is just an or conversation. I either do this or I do this. And they don't need to do that. Just exploring options doesn't mean that you're cutting all of your ties and your relationships with your current employer. Before you do that, you just need to ensure that without resigning and without making your intentions fully known, just to preserve, your current job status, you just need to ensure that the door is absolutely closed with your current employer. And then you kind of need to take a step back and work out, am I happy? Is it a bigger or lesser risk for me to stay where I am and still work at this level, even though I've done my profs? Or is it a bigger risk to, or is it a lesser risk to actually go out there and find something where where you're going to develop and actually start being a lawyer? The skills, depending on what you've been doing so far. I work with a lot of I know Ben does as well. We work with a lot of individuals that come through the ranks, for want of a better word. So they've started as a legal receptionist, even then secretary, then done their profs, or they've gone to legal executive, then done their profs, and just taken that slightly more elongated route. That, depending on what work you've been doing, is really valuable to firms out there, because you know how a legal office works. You've spent 4 years listening through osmosis and understanding processes and all that good stuff. So my advice would be, if it's definitely not going to happen where you are, why would you stay after doing your profs? But just make sure that the door's totally closed. And as I've said, come and talk to us. We're more than happy to kind of talk to you on a private and confidential basis, because every person's situation is different as well. We'd be able to tell you what's viable and what's not. But in my experience, you've been doing it 4 years and you'll have picked up some really good skills to take to another firm if the door is definitely closed.
I think to add to that, that's where a recruiter can be useful. You don't necessarily want to take your CV and go out to everywhere. Lisa and I have worked with people like this. We understand where those opportunities would potentially lie, and it can be a bit more of a targeted effort if you do decide to look, as opposed to sort of just going everywhere and seeing what happens. But yeah, I think otherwise that's all I have to add.
Thank you both. I will go back to one of our pre-submitted questions, and then I'll come back to the one that's in the chat. How do you deal with nerves and doubts about the quality of your work?
I think, to be honest, that's fairly normal. I think we mentioned this earlier on in the webinar. If at some point in that first 6 months, you don't feel nervous, or you're not questioning some of your work, then that's probably more of a red flag than if you are. You should be making mistakes, and you should be learning within that first 6 months. So I guess maybe just normalizing that feeling and just understanding that you're not the only one. Everybody around you in that position will be feeling the same thing. Build a bit of a safety net, I guess, around the work that you're doing. So, you know, try to mitigate risk. Ask for examples of previous work that's similar to what you're doing. Print out your work. Double check everything. Reread it 2 or 3 times before you submit it. Cross-reference dates, party names. Make sure you've got everything correct. And then if it comes back to you, it's likely to be more style than it is an actual error. And that is not something to worry too much about. You will learn the style of the partners that you're working with over time. You can't be expected within the first 3 months to understand exactly how a particular partner wants their work to be. Use the senior staff sending work back to you as a learning curve. Like we said earlier, they're expecting to send work back to you. They're expecting you to have to fix things. But I guess the key is what you do with that information, and making sure that you are understanding what changes have been asked of you and not continuously making those same well, not even mistakes necessarily, but not continuously having that same thing come back. So note down what has been asked of you. In terms of, I guess the takeaway is you just want to be understanding that that's normal feeling, and just be coachable, and implement the things that are asked of you. If the same thing keeps happening, that's over and over again. If you're at the 6 month mark and the same things are asked of you as the first month in terms of fixing things or changing things, that's when I'd start to get a little bit more concerned. But in that first 6 months, that's fairly normal.
Thanks, Ben. We've had a comment come into the chat. which is more of a comment rather than a question, but I'll put it to the two of you to see if you've got anything to respond on. This person was admitted last month. They feel like generally applying to roles feels like a dead end. It seems like it's a common experience with graduates, and this person is not the exception. It's feeling tough out there. Any comments on that?
It is tough out there. And, we could put our little rose-tinted glasses on and say everybody's getting jobs, everybody's, tripping into roles and getting job offers flying through the door, left, right, and centre. You're right, it is really tough. And we've actually done one of the webinars in this series is how to find a role. So if you go and take a nosy at those, that actually gives you some really good ways and some different tools on how to do stuff. Whether it's, recreating the CV, thinking about your cover letters, whether it's, dare I say it, being more flexible about where you're prepared to work. So as an example, we are finding individuals able to find roles in the regions at the moment, more so than in some of the main centres. Wellington's really quiet, Christchurch is really quiet, Auckland's okay. But if you are prepared to, get out there and do 12, 18 months worth of experience in one of the regions, you are looking at a much better option and better chances. As an example, I was talking to an individual who actually was a PA who was admitted a few months ago. She's actually relocated from Auckland down to Napier, and she's working for a law firm in Napier to build up that experience. Is that ideal for her? Would she have preferred to have stayed in Auckland? Yeah, she would. But in her mind, if she has to go and do a couple of years down there to get the legwork and become more attractive because of the level of experience she's got to other firms where the needs aren't as high, for that graduate piece, that's what she's needing to do. But you'll find, as I said, you'll find some really good pointers on the other webinars that we've done on that.
Thank you, Lisa. And we will send the links out to those webinars afterwards. I actually think that's answered a couple of the questions that were pre-submitted as well. So thank you. We've got a new one coming live. How do you navigate rotating through different teams within the firm in your first year? So some of these graduate roles where you are getting exposure to a lot of different practice areas or teams. Are there certain things that you should be thinking about with a view to determining which team is the best fit for you at the end of that year?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So I think that first year, again, I guess if you're rotating through the different teams, I would almost take what we've said there from a 12-month perspective and almost apply it to each of those individual experiences. Each one you're going to have learned how the firm works, but each role is going to be very different. In terms of what should you be picking up to understand where you want to be in the long run, I guess it's just, I don't really know the answer to that, Lisa. Have you got a concise answer for that?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Probably sounds really cheesy, but I would address each of your rotations like a lawyer. So address them. You might find yourself in a fantastic team and you love the energy and you love your supervisors, the way that they respond to you and the way that they interact with you. They have the right management style. But are you actually engaged in the work? Because longer term, you are and if you feel okay about it, that's okay. That's cool. But you need to make sure that that work is something that really interests and challenges you, as well as the kind of surrounding, as well as the stuff surrounding that. So for each rotation, I think it's just really important to probably towards the end of it, take a little step back and do a bit of research, a bit of R&D on it, and just do a bit of analysis in terms of what pieces of work did I enjoy? What was the management style like? What maybe wasn't as enjoyable for me? Is this going to be more of kind of like a feast or famine type of role? So where you're in a heavy transactional team, you'll find that work's either bonkers or it can be a little bit quieter. Do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy that thrill? Or would you want something a bit more consistent? So I think it's a case of, yes, enjoying the work and learning and developing, but also seeing how that dovetails to you as an individual, as a lawyer, and also as a person, and whether it meets your needs. Again, at the same time, and we've talked to people who have done their rotations, and towards the end, they're still a little bit unsure. That's okay. You know, you're still very early days in your career, and you're getting a taster within different teams, and talk to your peers, talk to your supervisors, and just make sure if you're a little bit vague or a bit grey on that, get their advice on it. But yeah, maybe a bit of R&D at the end of each rotation. You're on mute, Jenna.
Thank you. Thanks for picking that up. Back to the pre-submitted questions. So, how do you account for varying expectations that will differ between different employers?
Yeah, I guess this is something that we covered earlier, again in the other webinars, and it's I guess the questions that you can ask during the initial interview stage around sort of what is good performance and what that looks like. I think that is important earlier on in the going into a role, knowing sort of what is expected of you in the first place, as opposed to sort of going in blind. So again, we've got tips on that in a previous webinar, so I won't dwell on that too much. I suggest maybe watching that. But in terms of, I guess, whilst you're in the role, sorry, is actually asking for guidance on how you're performing. So don't be too needy. You don't want to be sort of asking every 2 minutes, but once you're having check-ins with, whoever you are reporting to, so don't be scared to ask how are things going. In terms of the wider reviews, is there a performance document that you can review? Is there targets that are set that you can I guess look at during those review meetings or during your catch-ups with the person you're reporting to? That will give you an indication of what they are expecting from you. In terms of I guess use the more experienced colleagues around you. So at this point, obviously, we talked earlier on about how you should be, making connections throughout the firm. So use those people that you've now got relationships with that have been around a little bit longer to sort of identify, what is expected of you. So yeah, take people for go for coffee with people, and actually build those relationships. So I think that's sort of how I would look to understand the expectations of your role.
Thank you, Ben. We've had a question come in the chat, and I'm just going to, it's quite a specific question to an individual. I'm going to just say it here that I think this might be a conversation that the Tyler Wren team can have with that particular individual personally outside of this chat. So I'm not going to specifically ask that question now. I will type my email address into the chat so that you can send your question directly to me after this, and we can link you in with Tyler Wren if they're happy for that to happen. And I will move to another pre-submitted question. Remote working. What opportunities are there to work remotely?
In all honesty, at this level, it's extremely rare. And again, in all honesty, it's probably not in your best interest. This is the part of your career where you learn by osmosis, by being around people. Again, as we've talked about, it is critical to create relationships, and it is much harder to do that remotely. So to answer the question, they're rare, they don't really exist. And in the interest of your development, I'd say they're probably not in your best interest anyway at this stage of your career. As you progress, that obviously changes, and it's fairly common for people to work remotely or work from home, but not at this level.
I think the only remote roles that we've seen in the last 2 years have been 5+ year litigators for a law firm that has its base in a particular area, but it works across New Zealand. that warrants remote work because of going to different courts, etc., but 5 years plus. And the other one is for very highly experienced legal executives that can very much work autonomously on conveyancing.
Yeah, I've had the
That
employment
yeah,
law
they're
as well.
they're the only remote roles that we've seen, as I said, for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I had an employment role as well, but you're looking at 4+ minimum. It's not at this level.
Thank you both. How would you go about making connections with others at work without getting too personal?
I think that's a great question because it's a really tough one, right? Everyone is really different. So I actually would suggest for individuals that have maybe not been too social or who are a little bit concerned about overstepping the mark or not, be getting on to some really good webinars. I really would, in terms of human behavior and how to make initial introductions and that type of thing. But I think the key thing is really gauging an individual's reaction and how they respond to types of work talk, first of all. So, if someone is extremely bubbly and helpful and happy in terms of sharing information with you and, showing you where the stationery cupboard is, or showing, mind you, not that that's a big deal anymore, or showing you where the kitchen is, or something like that, they are probably going to be a little bit more forward and a little bit more helpful than, someone that's got their head down in the corner chewing through a really heavy document. Also, that doesn't judge them. That just might be, where that snapshot of their personality in time. So I think have their lead by their example. What questions are they asking you? Kind of mirror that a bit more. And you know what? I think one way that I've seen quite a few people get through this is literally to ask, I don't want to overstep the mark. Actually stating it. Oh, I hope this isn't too personal for you. Please tell me if it is. Give them indicators. Give them the opportunity to kind of lead on that too. But yeah, there's absolutely loads and loads of stuff. And I'm not just palming that off in terms of how to spot different personality types and social interaction and just basic P's and Q's.
Thanks, Lisa. Great answer. Okay. No more live questions coming in. We probably have time for one or two. So I'm going to go to the pre-submitted questions unless anything comes in live in the meantime. I'm trying to look for questions that haven't been things that we've touched on during the webinar. Okay. What are employers looking for from more mature graduates to be successful in their first legal roles? So I'm guessing these are people that are transitioning into a legal career after potentially an earlier career in something else.
Is that okay? I guess they're probably looking for the very thing that you've just said, which is maturity, and what it is that you can bring to the role that is different to a somebody straight out of university. In terms of law, unless you've come from something that I guess is somewhat similar, it's still going to be the new. You're still going to be expected to be learning on the job, very similar to what we've already discussed. But I guess it's a bit more of a maturity.
And I think in hand with that, as we said before, being able to build relationships and being able to communicate, we do tend to see second career lawyers, for want of a better phrase, excel really nicely if they've been in industries that have developed those skills before. So yeah, I'd say communication, maturity, working on their own initiative, confidence, maybe tend to have a little bit more life experience, a bit more confidence about them. Yeah, I do see them thrive and do really, really well, especially after the first kind of 18 months. Their clients in a law firm often mistake them for having more experience. Therefore, whether that's right or wrong, they do see them as being a more experienced individual, and just the way that they're carrying themselves with that confidence and experience too. Yeah, they do tend to do really well.
Thank you. Probably our last question, which is actually a continuation of the thing we were talking about two questions ago. So the person has clarified what they were meaning. Navigating connections in the workplace. This is where we're talking about the person. getting too personal with questions. Navigating connections in the workplace, but without having the person get to know you too personally. So how do you avoid questions of on my personal life without being rude or breaking or hurting relationships? Have either of you got any comments on that one?
I think that's a tough one. It's a really great
Mm-hmm.
question, though. And I think maybe that's
Mm.
something that we can do more work on. But off the cuff, I would change, again, this sounds a little bit light, but I would simply change topic. If someone is asking you something quite personal, I would try to navigate the conversation away from that. So I don't know, as a silly example, if someone asked me, how many children do I have? I'd probably kind of just kind of switch that away a little bit. And that wouldn't be something that I would want to be sharing with someone immediately. But I would be kind of switching that around and just kind of, oh, I hear you've just been on holiday. And I know that sounds, when I say it like that, a bit odd, but when you're in the middle of a conversation and you're kind of doing something, and that all of the attention isn't on this webinar right now, it doesn't sound that unnatural. So I would just have I'd really draw understanding myself, for you, what you think is okay and what is not okay. So I think that that's something for you to really think about. And then I don't think that whole confrontation thing in the workplace is ever a good idea unless things are getting too personal. And if you're starting to feel like that, talk to your supervisor. Don't tackle these things head on. I think at this point in your career, there would be more experienced individuals around you that could furnish you with kind of navigating those workplace relationships, rather than you kind of just giving a reaction to them. Um, and then, yeah, I'd just be trying to divert the conversation away. It's a skill in itself. It's probably a whole new webinar, Jenna.
I think so. I
I
think so.
think I would I think I would add to that as well, is maybe understanding where the question's coming from. So sometimes when people are meeting new people, and they're a little awkward themselves, bearing in mind some of these people, they're meeting you for the first time, they're getting to know you. It could be that they feel like they have to ask a question when they don't need to. I guess they're asking how your weekend's gone, or how your weekend was. Understanding that they're just really just trying to create conversation.
Mm,
They don't really care. They're not probing too much. Were you drinking yesterday? They probably don't really care. But it obviously depends on the questioning and the line of questioning. Like they said, if how many kids have you got, or how, that sort of stuff, that's starting to border too personal. But if it's a simple, what did you get up to the weekend? They're probably not probing. They're just creating chitter chatter. And that could be quite easy to sort of just navigate away from.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. I think advice. I've seen some people do this brilliantly, who are not willing to talk about their personal lives at work, and they just know what they are willing to talk about. So when someone asks them a question, they can navigate into a conversation that they're willing to have. I think that the key thing is to not just shut the conversation down
Mm.
with
A hard
sorry, I don't
no.
want to talk
with
about
I
that.
am
Yeah.
uncomfortable about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's about just finding something that you are willing to talk about and offering that in return. That
Yeah,
probably
with the
yeah.
weekend question, it can be simple as oh no, it was a good weekend. What are we getting like? And then you just switch into work. What's the deadline for this? And bring it back to the task that's actually at hand, which is work. You don't need to give them a rundown of everything you did over the weekend.
No. Again, some amazing stuff online, on that. We are pure novices on that side. Like that, there is some great stuff. And again, this is all about, you using your lawyering skills of being great research and discovery experts, and doing a bit of self-learning on that, certainly.
Good advice. Very good advice. Well, that wraps us up for today. I want to thank Lisa and Ben for their absolute expertise in this, all the preparation that's gone into this presentation and to answering these questions, both live and pre-submitted. It's incredible advice that's been handed out today. So thank you both for your time. We will send the slides along with the recording and a link to the previous webinars to everyone that was registered on this webinar. That will come out in the next couple of days. And of course, you have our contact details, so the college's contact details. If you want to get in touch with any of us, please email the college if it's appropriate, we'll send it to Lisa and Ben. And yeah, we're all here to help and help transition you through profs and out the other side into a fabulous legal career. So thank you all for your time. Lisa and Ben, do you have any final words?
Oh, well, thanks to you guys as well. I know how hard you and Nick in the background have worked with us on this whole trilogy, and also just allowing us to kind of have a platform with College of Law, and for all of you guys for tuning in. That's a bit of an old lady phrase, isn't it? But no, thanks to all of you guys for logging on, and we're absolutely here to have conversations offline too. But no, thanks so much, Jenna.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
You too. Cheers, Jenna. Bye.
Cheers.